As promised, the day has finally arrived and we are going to be doing some towing with our long-term 2019 RAV4 Hybrid. According to Toyota, this hybrid vehicle should be good for about 1,750 pounds of towing capacity. That should be enough for this box trailer that's right behind it. This is a 12-foot interstate box trailer. Dry, it weighs 1,555 pounds, which is pretty close to the towing limit of this particular vehicle, but I have some things on the inside that we'll take a look at in a bit to get it right up to that 1,750 pound mark. To make sure we get our weight right and, of course, the weight balance right, we have haphazardly located concrete bags. Actually, these are strategically located in order to make sure that we have the right tongue weight. We also have a few 4x6s in here and some cans of diesel that we just grabbed at the gas station. And according to our WaySafe tongue scale here, we have about 200 pounds right there on the tongue. That's about appropriate for a 1,750 pound trailer and right about what you should have for the RAV4 Hybrid maximum. We installed a 7-pin wiring harness on this RAV4. If you want to know more about that, there's a separate video on that. And then right behind there on that frame of the trailer, we have a Prodigy wireless brake controller because this particular trailer is a 2-axle trailer, as you can see right there, and it does have electric brakes. I think electric brakes are pretty important when towing anything really, and especially towing behind a hybrid like this because we don't have as much engine braking as you'd find in a vehicle with a bigger engine. So with the trailer connected, it's time to head out on the open road. Again, I have a wireless trailer brake controller here. You can see it is this Prodigy wireless trailer brake controller. Plugs into the cigarette lighter, and then we have the brake activation button right there on the side. The gain is this little dial over there. It's pretty easy to use. I really like that because it doesn't matter what I'm towing or what I'm trying to tow with. I have a trailer brake controller that just goes right with the trailer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move over to our trip odometer here, and we're just going to do a quick and dirty test here with the trip odometer in the car and see what our fuel economy is like on this particular run. Now, we did this exact same run on Trip Computer A, and we got 37.6 miles per gallon because we do go up and down a 2,200-foot mountain pass. Now, the first thing I noticed today is that the backup camera in the RAV4 is really crisp and clear, and it has a center line, which I really love. Two things that are missing, oddly enough, in some tow vehicles out there, like the Nissan Titan that we recently had towing. So it was actually a lot easier to connect this trailer than in something like that Nissan Titan. We also have two different camera views right there in this screen. One that has more of a down angle to it so you can really see what's going on with the hitch, and then one to get you close to your trailer. The downside, of course, is that there's no easy button to turn off the parking sensors. You do have to dig around in this multi-function system right here in the instrument cluster if you want to turn off the parking sensors. And as with most crossovers out there in America, you cannot disable the front parking sensors from the rear parking sensors separately. So if you want to turn off the rear parking sensors as you're backing up your trailer, you have to dig around in this menu. So we're going to go ahead and turn those off because I am going to have to back up this trailer later. I'll warn you in advance because it's not going to be obvious going downhill, but the one big thing to keep in mind when towing with the hybrid is that when you're going back uphill, there's going to be a point where you run out of battery power. And that means that all you're going to be left with in this vehicle is the 2.5-liter naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle engine that produces less horsepower than in the non-hybrid model. So versus the non-hybrid RAV4, you are going to notice a difference when uphill towing, especially slightly longer distances where that battery is going to be depleted. And because we have extra weight behind us, you're definitely going to notice that the battery is going to fill up a little faster. So first we're going to go downhill. We're starting at about 1,300 feet. We're going to go down to sea level. We're going to have some steady state highway driving for a while, about 55 miles an hour or so. Then we're going to climb back up the mountain pass all the way to 2,200 feet, come back down again on the other side. So far, overall, the RAV4 feels pretty stable out on this winding road here. We've been going about 40 miles an hour downhill. You'll definitely notice that we don't get as much engine braking as in some of the alternatives. Now, we do have the ability to move over to the sport mode, for instance, here, and that is going to try and give us a slightly different ratio in this sort of imitation CVT. The important thing to remember about Toyota's hybrid systems is that this is not a true CVT. It's not a belt and cone style thing like we find in Nissan products. Instead, we have two electric motor generator units and a single planetary gear set. That's all that there is under the hood. The two motors work together to sort of imitate a transmission would be the best way to describe that. They can drive the vehicle forward electric only, one can generate power and send it to the other motor to help move the vehicle on, and then of course they can all be used for regenerative braking as well. One of the benefits of Toyota's hybrid systems, of course, is that we have pretty big electric motors compared to some other hybrids out there, and that means that we do get a reasonable amount of low-end torque, especially when you're starting off with the trailer, or if you were just decide to floor it, you get a lot more pep than you might think for a vehicle the size of the RAV4. At the moment, the RAV4 Hybrid is the fastest version of the RAV4, so that shouldn't surprise you too much. And of course, the upcoming RAV4 Prime is going to be the fastest version of the RAV4 and one of the fastest compact crossovers in America. Now, unfortunately, we don't know anything about any possible towing ability or towing range in the RAV4 Prime. I would be surprised if it is as high as this hybrid, however, because the RAV4 Prime is going to be heavier, it has a bigger battery pack, and that is likely going to cut in on the tow rating. Now that we have a straight section of road here, let's see what straight line acceleration is like. Again, that initial start off is actually pretty good because of that low end torque that we get from the electric motors. And we don't really have too much torque steer here because we do have that electric motor in the rear as well. That's putting as much power as possible theoretically to the rear axle to help improve overall grip on startup. And because this does not have a belt and pulley style CVT, that initial starting pull feels a lot more aggressive than towing behind something like a Subaru Forester or a Nissan Pathfinder. Now obviously efficiency is what hybrids are all about. When towing, obviously our efficiency is going to decrease, but a lot of the benefits to the hybrid system are still going to be here in the hybrid RAV4. The ability to operate in electric mode at lower speeds, reducing your energy consumption there. The fact that you can just stop at a stoplight. The engine doesn't have to keep running in order to keep the air conditioning going. That's also a big help. And again, in stop and go maneuvers or city traffic, this feels pretty peppy thanks to the low end torque of those electric motors. But let's see how that changes once we get out here on an open highway. So we're on Highway 1 North here. We're going to be going 55 miles an hour. Not only is that the speed limit, but that's also the trailer speed limit in California. Getting up to that speed limit's not too big of a problem in this hybrid though. You know, we have no problem keeping up with the flow of traffic. Admittedly, we have now consumed about half of the battery. It was nearly full before. Now, radar adaptive cruise control obviously will work with the trailer, so I can just go ahead and engage that right here. We'll see how this goes. And because the trailer brake controller in this vehicle is pulling its signal from the brake lights, even the autonomous emergency braking is going to activate the trailer brakes on your trailer, even if you're using a wireless trailer controller like we are right there. Going down the hill, we were getting about 70 miles per gallon, just as you'd expect. We hit some level areas there, and now that we're out here on the highway, our average is around 27 miles per gallon. So it is definitely starting to drop down, and we can expect that to drop down to probably around the teens by the time we're up there at the top of the hill again. The frontal area on this trailer is pretty high, so the faster you go, the bigger the impact that will be on your overall fuel economy, obviously. And I don't think that most people that are going to get a RAV4 Hybrid are going to be towing anything this large behind them. Most folks are probably going to go for something like an aerodynamic teardrop trailer for camping, or maybe a pop-up camping trailer. Both of those are definitely going to be easier to tow. The center of gravity is going to be a little bit lower, they're probably going to be a little bit lighter overall, and there's definitely going to be less wind resistance. So definitely keep all of that in mind. Also keep in mind that I actually managed to get our trailer weight a little bit wrong back there. This is actually a little bit overweight. So 1,555 pounds empty. We have 300 pounds of concrete and about 200 pounds of wood in the back. So we are a little bit over the 1,750 pound rating, but the tongue weight is correct. A little later on in 2020, we will be doing a longer distance camping trip with this RAV4 Hybrid, so be sure and stay tuned for that video. When we do that, that trailer will be absolutely correct in terms of its overall weight profile. We've turned off Highway 1, and now we're going to start going from sea level up to about 2,200 feet. The initial section of Highway 17 is not terribly steep, but it's going to get steeper as we go here. And we can already see, according to this graph, that we're definitely draining the battery, getting back up to freeway speed here up this little hill. But overall, it still feels pretty decent overall. We're definitely getting a lot more engine noise. The engine is definitely working hard, and the power gauge is almost at the limit. At this point in time, fuel economy has now dropped down to 24.2 miles per gallon. One should logically expect at least cutting your fuel economy in half. So if we're getting 40 miles per gallon in normal driving with a trailer like we have on the back, you should expect to be getting 20 miles per gallon or lower. There have been a number of videos out there talking about electric vehicles and overall range loss when towing. Some folks were experiencing overall range of perhaps 30% or 50% of the original vehicle's overall theoretical range. Now, those range numbers actually seem pretty sensible to me, because in a vehicle like this, we're seeing at least a 50% reduction in overall range, and we haven't really gotten to the steepest part of this hill yet. That makes sense because we have added 50% more weight to this vehicle than it had when it started out. The RAV4 is not terribly heavy overall as far as a compact crossover goes, and we've added 1,800 pounds to the back there. And then, of course, there's the fact that we have an enormous box attached to the back, and that trailer is far less aerodynamic than the RAV4, and the combination definitely takes a huge toll when it comes to overall economy. With any vehicle out there, you're definitely going to notice a pretty big difference in overall range and overall fuel economy when towing, but the difference can be bigger in vehicles like this hybrid or an electric vehicle, because vehicles like this really depend on their aerodynamics, low rolling resistance tires, the nature of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles in order to help improve overall range and efficiency, and some of that just goes out the window when you connect an enormous box on the back. Siri, what's our elevation?
It looks like you're at 587 feet.
There we go. It looks like we've just climbed up to 587 feet, and we do still have some battery left there. Actually, the battery level management has been pretty good in this vehicle overall. We've been getting about 2 to 3 bars down there at the bottom, but the steeper uphill grade is here to come just in about 2 miles or so. Our fuel economy now has dropped down to 21.2 miles per gallon, so we're definitely seeing that reduction of at least half. And remember, most of the travel so far has been downhill. We've only been going uphill for a short amount here. We're now approaching the steeper portion of the climb. Fortunately, the speed limit's going to go down to 50 miles an hour here, so that should be a little bit easier on the RAV4's hybrid system. Again, we have about 3 bars over there on the battery left, and it still feels pretty peppy overall. You can tell the engine is definitely starting to rev a little faster to help keep us going up this hill. But again, battery management seems to be pretty good. As long as you're not really digging really aggressively into the throttle, battery is staying right there around that same number. That means it's clearly time to step things up to the next notch and attempt to pass this truck that's up there. We'll see how it goes as we continue up the hill. Gonna blow, Captain, she's gonna blow. So overall, I have to say I'm pretty impressed. We're probably about halfway up the hill here, and the vehicle's still able to charge its battery. That's because we're not digging as deep into the throttle as you might think. Now, if you really were starting to drive this more aggressively with the trailer connected, then it could be a problem, but up and over this mountain pass, it seems to be pretty stable. Let's go ahead and ask Siri here what our altitude is. Siri, what's our altitude?
Looks like you're at 1,251 feet.
So we got up to 1,251 feet here, and because this is something of a rolling mountain pass, we definitely have decent opportunities to collect a little bit of additional charge, but the engine doesn't appear to be revving up too high, and it'll even go back into EV mode in these short downhill sections. Now, the regen braking is obviously doing some benefit here, as is the trailer brake controller, obviously helping keep things in check. But overall, I have to say I'm a little bit more impressed with the RAV4 Hybrid than I really thought I would be initially. I expected this to behave a little bit more like early generation Priuses, where it was pretty easy, without too much trying, to deplete the battery completely and have under 100 horsepower left. Clearly, obviously, this has more than 100 horsepower when the battery's done, but I actually expected it to be pretty easy to get in this situation, and so far, it hasn't proved that way. Now, if you were to be in really aggressive stop-and-go traffic where people are really taking off rapidly after complete stops, then maybe we could get to a point where this battery is more depleted. But so far, we're seeing 3 to 4 bars all the time on the battery display. Now, if you absolutely floor it, then, of course, you're going to start running that battery down. But we don't need to, because this is keeping up with traffic. It's going 50, 55 miles an hour up this hill, absolutely no problem. And remember, this trailer is actually a little bit overweight. Now keep in mind that Toyota does not give us any mechanism to monitor motor temperature, battery temperature, or transmission fluid temperature. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can get any of those metrics out of this vehicle via the OBD2 sensor. I would assume that everything is still tickety-boo down there under the hood because it's pretty cool out here. It's about 60 degrees outside, so the cooling is obviously keeping up. I'm not sure what this would be like crossing the Continental Divide in the summer, so hopefully that's something that we'll be able to test later on in the year. But as we're getting close to the top of the hill here, again, no power reduction going on. We still have 2 to 3 bars over there on the battery, and we still have the ability to accelerate when we want to. Now, obviously, when you're flooring it and you're working the engine hard, you're definitely getting a lot of engine noise into the cabin. It sounds like there's sort of a throaty sewing machine going on there under the hood, but the point is that the RAV4 can actually do it. Now, going back to our fuel economy number, we've hit the top of the hill. Our fuel economy average has dropped down to, wait for it, 16.2 miles per gallon. Now, on the bright side, the rest of this distance is going to be relatively level travel followed by downhill, so there's a chance for the vehicle to recover some of that and get back into the 20s or so. But on the other hand, it's worth noting that if I were to pull this exact same trailer at this exact same weight behind my Dodge Durango, we'd be getting definitely lower fuel economy than that. So there's still a benefit for driving a hybrid like this. Now obviously towing is going to reduce brake life in anything out there, but the regen braking system that we have in the RAV4 will give you much of the same benefit whether you're towing or not towing. And when you're going downhill, to give this a more consistent regen brake feel, it will automatically engage essentially more aggressive engine braking. It does that, of course, because it can use the electric motors to turn the engine as well as it can use the electric motors to turn the wheels. So all it has to do there is just shuttle some of that power over to the engine where it's being consumed mechanically, basically. Now out on a slightly rougher road, again, the mechanical all-wheel drive system that we find in the RAV4 is not here in the hybrid. We have that e-all-wheel drive system. However, it's still pretty capable overall. It definitely gives us a more sure-footed feel than we find in some of the other options out there, but we're still going to get more front-wheel slip than in something like a RAV4 without the hybrid system that has a full locking of the center coupling. If you want to know more about this all-wheel drive system, we do have a number of videos out there where we talk about the e-all-wheel drive system here. At low speeds, if you engage the trail mode, it's going to try and balance power more equitably between the front axle and the rear axle, but because there's no mechanical connection, you still will end up with a little bit more front wheel scrabble. As we pull into the driveway here, let's take a quick look at the trip computer. The trip computer in the RAV4 has been pretty accurate overall when we've verified this with filling up, driving, and filling up again, and it says we got 18.6 miles per gallon. So just about half of what you should expect when driving this without the trailer in the back, just as I expected. Bottom line with the RAV4 Hybrid, this was an awful lot better in the hilly areas than I really had expected it to be. And overall fuel economy ended up right about where I thought it would be, just about half of what you'd get without the trailer connected. In open highway travel, steady state, 55 miles an hour, we're getting about 22 to 24 miles per gallon. Not half bad with the trailer the size on the back. And remember again, if you're going to be towing a pop-up camping trailer or a teardrop trailer, you should definitely be expecting better fuel economy overall than this. And I have to say, if you're looking for a compact crossover with high fuel efficiency that you might want to take out camping now and then with a small camping trailer, the RAV4 Hybrid is definitely going to be a good option for you. You don't have to worry about getting something like the non-hybrid model so you can tow an inexpensive, lightweight trailer. This vehicle should be just fine for you, but of course stay tuned because we will have a video where we're hopefully going to be towing for about 1,000 miles or so. So be sure and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen, and I'll see you all later.